Welcome. Please take a seat. And first of all, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us here at the IoT Summit at GCCM in London from the Carrier community. We're having actually quite, I was thinking about it already before, it's the longest sentence of a topic I ever saw. So the wholesale telco industry in the digital transformation era. So the challenges and opportunities in interoperability and internetworking in the era of the on-demand services. So a mouthful. We're going to talk you through. We'll have roughly an hour. And yeah, let's see if you can pick something up. If you have any questions, let's put them forward, and we're more than happy to answer your questions if you have some. So having said that, I would like to introduce my panelists, because I can do as if I'm an expert, but the experts are here sitting next to me actually and on screen. Brendan, welcome. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. If virtually, if not in person. I was planning to be in London this week, but unfortunately, change of priorities meant that I'm still in Qatar this week. Pleased to be here. Yeah, I'm CCO for GBI. GBI, we're a prominent operator in the Middle East region. We have connectivity to the Gulf countries and also access to Europe and to Asia. So we provide connectivity services, infrastructure provider to all the great services that are being enjoyed now from some of the new digital providers. We're very focused now in terms of making sure that our network is providing 100% reliability and accessibility all the time with our partners, of course. And in terms of digitalizing this part of the world, a lot depends on us in terms of our infrastructure, providing the services that we can provide. So I'm pleased to be here and talk more with our esteemed panelists today about the digitalization of the industry. Okay, thank you so much, Brendan. And again, welcome. And please, next time, take the seat next to us, right? Yes. I miss you. Thank you so much. So Alan, please.
Yeah, thanks. Alan Meeks, Chief Operating Officer for Mox Networks. Mox Networks, we're based North America, LA. Our sole benefactor is Dr. Patrick Soon-Chong. He's a doctor working on curing cancer with big data. So we ran into a problem 8-9 years ago with him in trying to move a lot of data, buying circuits from different carriers, and we essentially outgrew your traditional carrier. So we had to be our own carrier. So we started a private telecom, we build, we IRU fiber, and we put DWDM equipment on that and do big transport. Most of that supports his healthcare cloud, which is full genomic and proteomic sequencing of healthy and cancerous tissue, integrative analysis, where they look for PD-1 markers to make, personalized evidence-based vaccines for autoimmune disease.
Okay, thank you. Good having you. Thank you for joining. Federico.
Hello, everyone. Federico Homburg is my name, Head of Business Development and Innovation at Deutsche Telekom Global Carrier, the international wholesale unit of Deutsche Telekom. We have all sorts of, classical wholesale business of voice messaging services like termination business, but also the peering stuff is in our unit. We have more progressive services around CPaaS and network APIs that we are just launching right now, and also in-flight services. This is our portfolio more or less. I'm sure we'll talk about many elements of that in the course of this panel.
Okay, thank you so much. And last but not least, Greg.
So yes, hi, my name is Grzegorz Powardowski, but you might want to call me Greg. I don't expect to actually pronounce Grzegorz. I'm head of solution engineering at Nexa, and Nexa is actually a transformation partner for most of the mostly for the carriers, wholesalers, ISPs, FTTH providers, accelerators, and so on and so forth. So we actually were established 12 years ago, and now being over 260 people working actually closely with telecommunication industry only. Pleased to be here.
Okay, thank you so much, and gentlemen, good to have you all. Brendan, if I may start with you, my friend, the current wholesale landscape. I mean, the digital transformation impacts, of course, the traditional carrier business models and so on. But just to kick it off, Brendan, from your point of view, how do you see the current wholesale landscape in respect to the digital transformation and the challenges and opportunities you see? Can you kick it off, please?
Yeah, sure. So I think I've spoken in previous panelists sessions about the challenges that we have as an industry now in meeting the growth requirements of our customers, and ensuring that, again, we provide the capacities that are needed to serve the digital economies in whatever region we're operating. And we're continually investing in technology platforms, trying to get more out of the existing legacy platforms that we have. And there's a lot of developments in terms of capacity that we can see from chip developments, nanotechnology, that are allowing us to get those greater capacities. But that's just on the sort of the bare essentials of our industry, and the capacity, and making sure there's availability 100% of the time. In terms of digitalization, I think the digitalization is allowing the services that the end users use, but digitalization as a wholesale company as well, we need to make sure we're easier to do business with, and rather than running with spreadsheets and old legacy platforms, we need to make sure that we're able to provide bandwidth on demand. People can turn it up, turn it down, hopefully not turn it down too much, but turn up their bandwidth requirements on the touch of a button. And the world is now moving to online portals where you can basically manage your services as you would manage your banking, whatever, on demand, as I say. So we're developing our own technologies, our capabilities in-house, both from basically order to cash, exactly how we can service customers and provide services through the availability of online services. So that's very important for us. And then the actual network itself, the development of STN and STN technologies, again, making us much more efficient in being able to do what we need to do for our customers. So yeah, the digitalization is obviously something that happens at the end user side in terms of our core infrastructure, but we have to be very focused on our own capabilities to ensure we're digitalizing as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Federico.
Yes, here.
The next operator, what is the how do you see the wholesale landscape with regards to in regards to the digital transformation? What is your overview? What do you see from Deutsche Telekom overview?
Let me structure it starting with the customer, and Brandon said it already. The customers are more and more used, and when I talk about customers, it's enterprise customers, it's wholesale, classical wholesale customers. And what we see here is that it's getting grayish. It's not a typical wholesale customer anymore, because many of the wholesale services we offer are very interesting for enterprise customers as well. So that's good for the wholesalers. It's bad in terms of our own organizational structure, which is still old-fashioned. Yeah, so we start slicing the elephant before we've hunted it, and so this puts a bit on pressure on the internal organizational structures. But customers are used to now to getting instant delivery, online ordering, and all that, putting SLA somewhere, and it's that experience where the blueprint more or less is provided by Amazon Web Services. And this is something where we as wholesale industry have to get to mimic that customer experience on the one side. On the other side, we have new competitors coming in, which I said a few of them here on the IoT side, like Flow-Live, the colleagues, and so on. There are also many other companies out there that provide, Amazon Web-like experience. They are cloud native. They come from the SD-WAN area, for example. They provide the overlay. So it's getting a bit more tricky. And on the production side, we still have, the legacy stuff that takes a while to be delivered. When we deliver a fixed line somewhere in Hungary, there's a guy that has to go out there and check whether the fixed line is still there, whether the port is still the same, whether it has been upgraded or downgraded or something like that. That's insane. This is not like 2023. This is like 20 years ago, more or less, and we have to overcome that and have to get better there. Yes, technology helps, like the new virtual services, universal CPE, things like that. But it's still, for many telcos, including us, in a way, I have to say, a bit buzzwordy. We're working on it, but linking all the new things with the legacy takes a bit of time. And it's not as straightforward as for somebody who starts as a greenfield operations.
Okay. Well, I mean, Alan is sitting next to you and he was actually thinking, well, you know what, I need that connectivity, but you know what, nobody is delivering what I want, so I'll do it myself, right? That's right. How you started. So
that was the impetus of Mox, yes. And I mean, really with digital transformation being such a broad term and a big word, you know, we could really kind of slice it up a number of different ways in our world. Mox being, you know, the entity that's constructing fiber, putting fiber in the ground, really we're OSP and ISP, outside plant for the most part. Even though we support everything up the stack, we have, you know, NFV, SDN networks that overlay on top. Primarily our function is that. So what I've seen, you know, in my career in the last 20 years has been, you know, the intelligence of software crept into the network layers, you know, into layer 3, and we got all this intelligence in BGP and switching, and this is, you know, the advent of SDN, NFV. These things come about, that's great, gives you all this extra functionality. To Federico's point, you know, support, we should be doing this stuff remotely. There's no reason to be sending texts out. That gets a lot difficult when you creep into the physical layer, actual fiber. How do you bring intelligence to the physical layer? So I think Mox is doing something pretty unique in North America right now. We've been constructing new long haul routes and putting in what are called Telecent robotic cross connect boxes. And these are, you know, boxes you can dress thousands of fiber connections into, and they have little computer vision and arms, and they can physically move cross connects around. Very reliable, came out of UCLA Robotics Lab. We were one of the beta customers. So we're putting these on our long haul networks. So we have these at our AMP sites. We have these at all of our interconnection points. So similar to your point, when we have a cable cut, you know, historically we would send a tech to either end, OTDR, shoot the fibers and say, okay, the cut's at 64 kilometers north, dispatch a splicer to that point, you know, fix it. Now I've got, with a network I'm supporting in West Virginia, Ohio, Washington State, Oregon State, we've got 2 guys, one in Boston and one in Houston, that can remotely, we have expo units in those, can test, shoot the fibers remotely, and then send a splicer directly to the point. So you save one step there. But if you take that concept and you start thinking, well, this is allowing actual telemetry data to be gathered on dark fiber networks, then the possibility of intelligence really becomes a real thing. So we're starting to actually shoot all of our fibers consistently, like once a week, all the unused fibers. Historically, people would build long haul networks, put the fiber in the ground, test it once, and forget about it until they need to turn up a pair, and they find out half their cable's bad 10 years later. So we're keeping historical records on all of our cable after we build it. So, you know, 20 years down the road, we'll be able to tell you what events happened everywhere on that cable throughout the life of it, which is pretty unique in long haul. I don't think I've seen anybody else doing that. So for us, really, digital transformation right now for us is trying to bring that intelligence to the actual OSP, ISP layer.
Okay, thank you. Greg, with the Nexo, I mean, you're doing incredible things and incredible services, but what does for you mean, let's say, the digital transformation? How can you contribute to it, or Nexo?
So as both Alan and Federico already said, there are some challenges and there are some difficulties of that digital transformation. And one of the biggest is actually getting the right data at the right place with the right quality. And the challenge is huge because most of the classical carriers have those challenges in front of them. And this is where we can come forward. And this is where we can help and actually bring those data. And based on those data that is collected automatically, that is saved in your systems, that is actually available at your hand at any point of time, you can actually make decisions that are reliable, that really brings your business forward, that really keeps your business competitive. And this is a huge bow in your direction, because what you did sounds amazing. And I believe that's the direction everyone should actually go, to make sure that the data they have in the system is great quality, and based on those data, they can actually take decisions that are really move their business forward. And then on top of that correct data, then you can actually automate, then you can build end-to-end automated processes, then you can actually integrate with other parties, you can integrate your different systems. Then the whole world is actually pretty open, because you can do whatever you want, but you have to start from the groundwork.
Okay, so guys, we set the pace. Federico, you were mentioning, or that's what I got out of it actually, is that the carriers, the operators, they, now they have to go directly, or they move directly to the enterprises. So are the carrier business models changing? And if so, in what way? What do you see?
I think they are changing. As said, the customers are becoming grayish. To give an example, CPaaS, yeah, Communications Platform as a Service, is not a typical carrier service. In fact, we've lost this business to aggregators like the Twilios, the Vonages, and so on of this world.
Yeah, but we'll watch what Twitter was doing, so maybe it'll come back. You never know.
It will come back. The thing is, we have another chance, you know, with 5G being cloud native, with network APIs and network functions we can expose. But as soon as you expose a network function, or via API or also CPaaS, the customers they will get it. Yeah, and no matter whether it's an enterprise customer or a small home office sort of customer, or a garage developer, that doesn't play a role anymore. So, and the question is this a wholesale business? Or is this only a wholesale business when you sell, your 5G APIs to the Amazon Web Services and Azures of this world? They, they wrap it and resell it then to the end customer in the end. And they act as aggregators. The challenge here is, and the opportunity. The opportunity is to start with that. With 5G, we have this, we can make up what we've lost in terms of in CPaaS. The issue is, we all have our individual footprints, and those network APIs, they are network specific and footprint specific and all that. So we have to create some sort of aggregation function for a developer not having to go to each single network, and get his APIs there. One option is, as said, we sell to the hyperscalers and they do the rest. This is going to disintermediate me from my customers. So do I want that? Not necessarily. Can I avoid that? Probably also not. But what we have to do, and what we are actually working on, is to enable something like, call this API federation, API roaming, for example, so that I can sell network APIs of other operators to my customer, and the other operators can do the same with their customers. So, and this is a way actually so that we can recoup what we've lost, in CPaaS, and partially also in international IoT, by the way.
Okay. Brendan, do you see the traditional carrier business models changing?
Yeah, I mean,
they have to.
They have to if you want to continue to grow in this business and have a role to play in the development of the new services, because as we've said, I think the hyperscalers, the OTTs, content providers are the ones that are really driving now in terms of their demands, and they are the ones that we're developing our relationship with now, as opposed to being just a carrier business or a carrier wholesale business. And I think, if you're able to do that, you can more fully present and develop the services that you want to be able to add value to your business. So yeah, we have in the last 12, 18 months have grown from being a pure carrier business, and what might have be called enterprise business in the past. We don't tend to address enterprises. We tend to address the hyperscalers, OTTs specifically, as the ones that are driving directly the requirement in the marketplace. And yeah, I think the point made on APIs and the commonality of the approach across carriers, that's the one restrictive thing at the moment. We're finding still that the traditional ways of doing business in this part of the world, are still there. And that's where a lot of these players are struggling, this region, that we haven't got those APIs and this ability to provide those seamless services. And it's something we're conscious that we need to develop, but it's almost like a critical mass of carriers have to work together to ensure that this is in place. And so, I think the more we talk about it, hopefully the quicker this will happen. I know, for instance, there are there's platforms out there that are aggregating carriers to provide APIs to allow customers to enjoy the benefits of instant demand and bandwidth requirements and other services, be it security, etc. But it's still in the early days, certainly in this part of the region, but something we're very focused on.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Anything to add?
Yeah, I would add that, you know, what I've seen in the wholesale space is carriers becoming more cloud agnostic. Right? They're willing to sort of play the multi-cloud management.
Are they built for it?
Well, that's another question. I mean, really only having the on-ramps is kind of what that takes. You know, so if you have the on-ramps with AWS and Azure and GCP and all the right locations, then you really can create that front end for the customer to be that multi-cloud management piece of it. Whether that's useful or not to a certain point with individual customers. I mean, to Federico's point, the wholesale and enterprise lines have blurred quite a bit lately. I mean, we're an example of it. You know, NantWorks, the parent company, outgrowing your traditional carrier. We did the same thing on the cloud side as well. We started doing a lot of development within Azure ML tool sets because they're great. But, you know, we watched examples like Dropbox, you know, who built everything on AWS, and then they got too big, it got too expensive, and they had to move to their own platform, and it almost killed their company. So we're trying to look forward for Patrick and spending his money on things that'll give him a platform that he can grow into. So what you see with that is basically where do the wholesale telco providers play a role in that? It's definitely providing the on-ramps, you know, coordinating the multi-cloud management for the customer in the most intelligent way. But as they get to that tipping point, it's also good for the wholesale telcos to start to recognize, and I would say as we turn and face the telco space adjacently from what we're doing in healthcare, this is what we're trying to look for are the folks that were facing the same challenges we were. We're essentially a healthcare content company. So the challenges that AWS, Google, Meta face are very similar to the ones we face. As we, you know, sequence genomes and proteomes and stack all that data, it's not that it just has to be stored. It's got to be elastically stored and computed. This is where the problem comes in. You start to run into a physics problem. This is, you know, you can't just put everything in monolithic data centers anymore and get data from them. You need to get everything closer to the edge. So part of our thesis when we approached Patrick about building his own private telco was that as we construct these networks and put dark fiber in the ground, we build AMP sites. Along the way, we'll put small compute and storage nodes as well in those AMP sites. And now we're trying to push towards a truly distributed compute and storage network because it's the only way that it's going to work. We're doing this experimentally, you know, with 20,000 patients in trials, and we get to the tipping point pretty quick. We fill up DWDM systems, 16, 17, up to 30 terabits, and we have to light multiple pairs, you know, in conjunction to reach that capacity. So we're looking, you know, to the space to see who's kind of in that same situation, who's growing rapidly, but maybe they're, you know, stuck in a kind of like a Dropbox scenario. They need to figure out a different path forward. And having the raw infrastructure, owning the raw infrastructure does allow for you to scale without being, you know, stuck in a massively OpEx heavy business with everything tied, all your risk tied to that OpEx.
No, absolutely. Moving a bit more into the tech. So Greg, new technologies, they push us and they have a huge impact on the service portfolio. So how and in what way?
So actually customers these days are pretty demanding, and what they demand from everyone.
It's their fault, right? So the customer's fault. They are demanding something, right?
Kind of it is and kind of it is not, you know, how the world is constructed. So actually what everyone is asked to do now is to actually be as flexible and as quick as possible. And till the recent point, carriers were not that affected by the fact, but nowadays everyone is affected by the fact.
They were sleeping. Come on. They didn't see the OTTs coming. They didn't, right?
We thought.
Sorry, yeah,
we thought they're OTTs, but we are carrier grade.
Oh yeah. And the alarm bells were still not going, right?
No, we thought carrier grade is, you know, the USP enough, but apparently it's not.
No. Sorry for the interruption, but so in what way do you think that can you give us an example where you can say, well, this for an EXO really, you know, with this technology, it was really pushy.
So actually, one of the greatest examples that I can give you is Deutsche Telekom at the moment. So actually, what they're doing now, they're actually transforming at the moment, and what they're doing now, they're investing heavily in automation, in data correctness, in inter-carrier operations, and all of that actually brings them to the point where they're more flexible, where they're more open, and the things that the services that they delivered quicker.
Shall we check? Shall we ask them?
I didn't ask him to say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't.
But is it true? What he's saying? Are you investing
it's
heavily?
true.
Are you need to see the light, and are you moving in now full speed?
Yes, and we see the train coming.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. At least you see the train now, right?
Yeah.
No,
but we are investing on many fronts actually, and as said, the challenge is to do it for the legacy business, or how much do you do for the legacy business? What do you put, on a new BSS, for example? Do you just use it for new services, old services? Again, what do you do with them? We are investing, for example, to start with the customer front end, basically with automated quoting, for example, with APIs that we make to other operators so that they can order their services directly online. It's MEF compliant. We have to do this in a standardized way, which is another element, of complexity that is inherent of the carrier industry. And again, it's all related to the little footprints that we all have, including DT, but customers requiring global end-to-end connectivity and footprint, basically. This is what the hyperscalers have. We do not have that. We have to create that. So, so standardization and these APIs are an important element of it. This is one element where we're doing this. We are investing into blockchain-based settlement, an automated settlement between carriers. We're doing this on the fixed line side, for example. With a couple of others, we're trying to extend that. We're trying to make it MEF compliant again, and trying to get a standard out of the whole thing. We are active in the Camara Alliance, and also in the GSMA Open Gateway Initiative. Again, the idea is here to create a standardized northbound API, so from telcos to hyperscalers and end customers, but also east-west between the operators to enable exactly what I said earlier on, this API federation or API roaming. These are just some areas that we are exploring. Another area, to give an example, is the separation of access and service. What I strongly believe is that our customers, and this goes back to your point in multi-cloud, bring their cloud with them. So we, as telcos, will have to support all the clouds out there, including our own. So we have to provide the gateways and the orchestration capability for customers, but also for ourselves to produce our service independently of our access. This is also a lot of complexity. If we talk about something like universal CPE, which is around for 10 years at least, again, we still have our CPE, which is dedicated, service specific, more or less monolithic. We're not there yet, and the complexity again in the international context is that we need to have a internationally standardized universal CPE.
Again, did you follow, guys? Say it again. A standardized
universal CPE, customer premises equipment.
All right.
So some sorts of hardware that we place, at our customers' premises. So we are investing into the cloud-based BSS, for example, and automation on that end. There are many aspects, as said, and what I just told you is just a couple of things.
Brendan, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I think the fragmentation of the industry is been one of the reasons why the dominance now of hyperscalers in driving what's happening. They've had the ability to globally determine what they want, and basically determine that with the operators and carriers that they need to support them. And we need to do better, I think, in aligning and alliances on standardization, APIs, so that we're as an industry better capable to act as in the interest of the industry. So I think that's been the case for some time, and we're going through our own radical changes in terms of changing BSS, OSS. We've been operating on legacy systems for far too long, and frankly got away with it, and that's been because the fragmentation in the industry. It's been a case, well, if no one's doing it particularly well and others are doing it badly, it doesn't really matter, because ultimately you can revert back to the legacy way of doing business. But now we're seeing that it absolutely, with the hyperscalers, and this is a good thing, and they are driving a situation where we need to very quickly revolutionize our systems. And it's a big challenge to us, challenges in terms of doing business, the front end of our business, working with our customers. Suddenly we have to spend a lot of hours and time internally looking at what's legacy, how we change things, how we change processes, how people change, different things happen. So big challenge, but it's something we're engaged in as with DT now, and radically changing our business model.
Mm-hmm. All right. Alan, question for you. Since, 8.5 years talking about 5G, all right? So that's all nice, but is 5G, will 5G change the landscape, and if so, how? And what about IoT and the AI and impacting actually the business models which we have? And talking about moving into the cloud, So I know it's
a lot of buzzwords.
A lot of buzzwords, I know, but I want to unravel it, because I want to see where do we stand today, and what is there to expect, because we are the best in talking about acronyms and whatever and invent them and blah. But by the end of the day, what we sometimes hear, you know what, after 10 years, it was not a B from a billion, but it was an M from a million. So what's there?
I think look, it's technology keeps evolving. We're headed towards obviously more bandwidth wirelessly, but more bandwidth wirelessly means shorter wavelengths, which means the signal doesn't go as far, which means you need more density of fiber. So really that's kind of our role when we look at metro and long haul, why we're upsizing a lot of our cables, is so that, after we put them in for our foundational needs, we can go back in and do, community development, cell tower access, do the 1-2 punch of the business model of building fiber. Once, how quick that density can happen, I think just depends on the area, right? And it's going to certainly happen in metro areas a lot quicker, and there's more money to be made. There's more traffic to be moved. Does it become a universal connectivity platform for access? I'm not so sure. At least in North America, we have so much space that there is a lot of empty space, and I don't see 5G rollouts happening across the country. I see them happening in metro pockets. And again, at least from my perspective in North America, the long haul fiber is really old. Most of it was put in 98 through 2002. And it's all aging out right now. This was a big problem for us when we went to Go Light Systems. We were trying to get fiber from different providers. OSNR values are not good enough for the new systems. We're all a Sienna shop with DWDM, and our Sienna 6500s, now we're moving to FlexGrid and RLS. This stuff gets really sensitive, and you need really good, clean fiber. .2 D1 21 dB per kilometer loss or less is kind of where we need to be. Or my engineers will, laugh me out of the room if I bring them back fiber that's dirty. So this is like the impetus of us looking at needing to construct new stuff. So when I look at, 5G, AI, all these things, we're using all of these tools up the stack in the healthcare platform. But again, it's sort of limited and targeted. And I think that's, much like a clean energy approach. You're not just going to put solar everywhere. You're going to put it where it makes sense. You're going to put wind where it makes sense. I think it's the same thing with this type of connectivity. It's going to pop up where it makes sense, where the business case makes sense. But ultimately, it means that we need to build a lot more fiber in my mind. When I look at all of this, you're not going to have this transformation take place without a density of new fiber cable, and it's got to be everywhere. And new long haul, at least in North America, with access points. See, traditionally in North America, the AT&Ts of the world built a lot of long haul and subsidized, right, by the ratepayers, but they don't allow any access to it. There's no on and off ramps in the middle of these routes, so they'll pass through, say from a town like Minneapolis all the way to Seattle in this big northern tier of dark space because there's hardly any people up there. But then we get these rural broadband stimulus packages to go build fiber in middle mile. All they'd really have to do is just take one of AT&T's 8 empty ducts and let us populate it. And we'd have access to all this stuff. We'd solve the problem in, 5 years instead of, basically doing tax transfers to the ILEX with these packages. So I see them being useful. They're definitely going to be, you know, part of the future in the connectivity landscape. It's what allows for all the interoperability. Just like MEF with Ethernet sort of unified the ability to connect access to long haul networks for any provider out there. All you had to do is pop an interconnection point and put up an NNI, and you could have access to anyone's network. I think we're seeing that more and more within 5G and the DAS space as well. With MVNOs and different ways to interoperate with that. I think that's just going to continue to evolve, but probably only in the places really where it makes sense.
Brendan, 5G, the game changer?
I think it's one of them. As has been said, I think, you know, 5G in terms of the rollout has been in pockets. It's always talked about as a huge generator of data in the likes of driverless cars, driverless taxis, whatever it might be. You know,
I like to drive my car myself. Sorry.
Yes, but I know, and I've seen a lot of the press about how these things can work, and in certain environments. And I know in the States, you're seeing in certain places these things happening, and in places in this part of the world, Dubai is advertising the availability of flying taxis within 12, 18 months. And so you won't just have to go out on the street and get a taxi, you'll be able to sort of jump on some sort of extended time machine and be taken where you want to get to. So, you know, I mean, all these things are creating data. I mean, Metaverse, for instance, one of our key partners, Meta, we're working very closely with them in the region. And the onset of new gaming platforms, you know, the replacements for some of the big games that some of us enjoy playing today, or our children enjoy playing today. I mean, they're going to be virtual reality based. They're going to be, you know, this is the awaited new world that we're going into, that is going to create mountains and mountains of new data. And, you know, the extrapolation of that on the requirements of the capacities that are needed are remarkable. And just in this region, we're talking about, you know, 20-fold increases in requirements in the next few years. You know, and just to be able to deal with that from an infrastructure perspective is the physical challenge, if nothing else, we have, not just digital. So, yeah, I mean, the 5G is one component. It's going a lot slower than I wish. I mean, I've been always talking about these sorts of things for many years. It always takes a lot longer than some of our vendors would tell us as well, because obviously they're selling a lot of the technologies that are in our networks to support these things, and it's the consumer at the end of the day making these choices. But yeah, bigger requirements, bigger capacities, physicality of that is important, but, you know, we have to digitalize to be able to cope with that demand as much as anything else.
Okay, role of APIs in the digital transformation, Greg.
I think it's a crucial role. I think it's one of
that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most important aspects of the whole digital transformation, because at the beginning, actually, starting from the information that you have to actually have a way to use it, and you have to have a way to use it efficiently. So actually the key point of any automation is integrating first your systems, your data sources with the systems that actually uses the data. So nobody has to do any copying pasting. So API can do it for you. That's one hand. That's on one hand, on one side. On the other side, actually integrating with your customers or with your partners, quoting your services, supporting your services, ordering your services, even provisioning your services automatically without of any human intervention, without of any human errors, without of anyone that has to actually look at it, has to do it. This is something that really changes the market, that really will change how we actually live, how we actually order services, how we actually deliver the services. And it's gonna be quicker, easier, and those who will actually embrace it quicker will change the whole market, will change the world in the future.
Federico?
Yeah, I talked a lot about APIs already. So for me, this is a key growth area related to 5G. Also, reaching new customer groups that we have not reached before. Many customers, at least of DT, many developers are not even aware we are exposing APIs of any sort. Yeah, they think we're a closed shop, and they turn to the typical aggregators. So here we have, you know, to improve our marketing activities, actually. So APIs is one thing. Also crucial, you know, in the context of private 5G networks, for example, which is another growth area for us. You need a lot of fiber actually to connect those lines. Alone in Germany, you know, when I looked last time, like 3 months ago, they were like 200 licenses for private 5G networks. And these were only those who had agreed to be published. So there are more companies out there. So this is a huge opportunity. And 5G is not even 5G standalone, not even rolled out entirely. Yeah, there's no roaming as of yet. And so this will also open up new opportunities in the IoT area, for example. Brings other challenges, obviously, related to permanent roaming, for example, which is sometimes forbidden. Sometimes, you know, there are latency issues because of home routing of the traffic. That again, so that this built-in feature brings another opportunity to sell low latency roaming to, you know, to companies where the applications require that. We call this critical IoT applications. But the fact is, with 5G, we'll be more in a position to offer service level agreements that are end-to-end, also, you know, covering the roaming leg, which is something we cannot do today because it's best effort, and we don't control the whole value chain. And because there are no frameworks actually for end-to-end quality in roaming.
And best effort is quite, let's say, comfortable for the legal departments. Trust me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is. That's why. So, yeah, Alan.
Well, I think Brendan hit on a really good point that doesn't get discussed much recently, which is really the physical challenge of meeting this demand. And I think prior to 2020, we all thought the pace of Moore's law and technology was just, you know, kind of a given. But in the last few years, that's really changed. And all of a sudden, in all of our models, as we're going to source gear, the big lacunas are semiconductors. And this is a huge challenge. You know, just with the Russia-Ukraine war, having 80% of the neon gas supply fall off the market almost overnight. This is what the Dutch use. They make all, ASML makes all the lithography machines, you know, the current ASML. And, you know, what is the neon gas source? You can't spin that stuff up overnight. It comes from first stage steel foundry plants and air separation units. Mariupol was the majority of that in southern Russia. That's just fallen off the market. So we're scrambling quickly. We're going through supplies now, and we're scrambling quickly to try to get more, you know, out of places like South Korea. But is it going to be enough? Probably not. And so we're going to have to start making some choices in different levels of semiconductors that are made. The high-end stuff, great. I think we're not going to give up that because we're all going to need our servers, our laptops, our phones, our DWDM equipment. Mid-range stuff, you know, probably survives as well. But when we get to the low-end stuff, which is a lot of where IoT is, you know, your singing washing machine is probably going away.
Well, I'm happy for that because it made anyway a big noise. No. All right, Brendan. Another topic which is always hot, that's always security, surveillance, cybersecurity. How are you handling this in the, you know, what can GBI guarantee to us?
Yeah, well, I mean, on this front, I mean, from an internal perspective, we're very focused on it, given what's happened in the last few years and the threats that have increased. As a provider of services, we've taken the choice, at least at this stage, to just provide the core infrastructure and not to provide security services, to allow our customers to develop their own security platforms on the back of what we provide them. And, you know, that's a choice because I'm a great believer in simplifying the business, whatever you're in anyway. And yes, we don't want to dumbify it, if I can use that word, so that we become irrelevant. But we're always going to be relevant. And with all the challenges we have, we believe we can offer differentiation outside of some of the new areas of service delivery, which security is very important, by saying to customers, look, okay, no, if you need us to do something customized in the core infrastructure, we will do it, but we're not going to go to you with a plethora of different providers of security service. We're not going to be in that space. And as an infrastructure provider, that's what I want. I mean, previous to me joining GBI, we had an enterprise team that were talking to multiple vendors, but the scale of organization we could never scale up to the likes of DT, Orange, or some of the big Verizons, et cetera, the AT&Ts, to the level that was needed to really do justice to this area. So yeah, I mean, it's not at this stage, as well as it's important as part of the full service definition, full service deliverable, it's not an area that we focus on.
Alan, I mean, working with patients, personal data.
Yep, compliance is a big thing in our world.
Yep. Tell us, enlighten us.
Well, for us, to Brendan's point, simplicity is what solved it for us. So like security always is today and always will be an issue. It's never going to go away. The simplest way for us to address it is we were building all of our own internal cloud, our own internal networking, our own internal fiber, was to just segment everything off from the rest of the world and build it all ourselves. We're lucky we can do that because we kind of have one customer, our doctor. So we're building for him, and that allows us to do that. But in the world of servicing a lot of other wholesale customers and the interoperability, I think that will probably work itself out through. There's plenty of promise and with quantum computing, with blockchain for security, that will probably solve a lot of these issues. But those technologies aren't mature enough for a mass market at this point, and I think that's going to take some time. So it's going to be a challenge we'll always have. The way we solved it really was just simplicity. Everything that's important, everything that carries customer data, wall it off. But we've been, with HIPAA compliance, and then we have CLIA in the United States as well. This is handling genomic data. Some of that does have to leave our network. And so, yeah, we have very tight security protocols on that. We spent a lot of time thinking about how we're going to interconnect things where that data needs to exit and enter our network. But again, keeping those to single points is usually the easiest way to do it. And having, lots of good filtering, protecting yourself from DDoS, all these things are super important. So we just took sort of the standard approaches that, say, a network provider would do for their own network. But imagine you only have one customer, and that's kind of the world we're in. At least for that level. I mean, we sell a lot of dark fiber and wave services to other folks. But again, the security is not such a big issue on that because they're private lines.
Federico?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. What can go to the cloud will go to the cloud. And with that, the security and data protection becomes even more important. When critical production, goes to the cloud, you want to make sure that it's up and running 24/7, so it becomes a very important element of the whole value chain that we also as carriers have to get our head around how to do that. We have our open telecom cloud, yes, and there are customers who value the privacy that they have there, but is it successful commercially in the sense that there are really many? Yeah. And the reason is very simple. There are cloud standards out there. They're set by the hyperscalers, and we'll have to support them, all of them, period.
Full stop.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. So in terms of security, we have a number in our portfolio, a number of DDoS defense solutions, which sit in our network, and where the network connectivity you get in this case from DT is an essential part of the production chain. Yeah. So other colleagues offer zero trust kind of environments and stuff like that. It's not so much wholesale related. So I don't know too much about that. But fact is, security with the cloud becomes even more important.
Anything to add to that?
Yeah, maybe just one thing. So actually data protection and data security, data residency is the challenge that we're all facing, and since carriers are facing it, we're facing it because we're holding actually data of carriers, of the customers, and in some parts of the world there is a really strong demand to actually really take a good care about data residency and data security. But there are ways to do it. There are quite simple ways to do it, and we're happy to actually do it every time it is needed. But it's a challenge that in my opinion, will never be overcome, because the more we do, the more the other guys do to actually get the data out. So we actually have to work hard to actually prevent from that happening, but the work will never end.
No, I think you're right. Looking at the audience, do you have some questions for these gentlemen? They're quiet, right?
Give us your questions.
Come on. Brandon is waiting all the way there for your questions. I think we're clear, guys. So let's move to the to a closing round. Brandon, if I may start with you, tell us, scope the future for me, please. What is there to expect? What developments, what latest developments do you see forthcoming, and or what should we watch out for?
Well, flying taxis, I think I mentioned that earlier on before. Robots, virtual worlds. everything that 5G and other technologies have promised to deliver for several years. I mean, that's the future that I see, driving some of the demands on us as an industry. And I think what I've summarized.
I was hoping that you would say less kids gaming.
I'm
right?
afraid. I think adult gaming is probably more
Exactly.
I think there'll be more of games that will be tuned in with everybody's lifestyle, not just our kids. I think. Anyway, that's a view of the future vision, but I think it's something that we talked about, metaverse, etc., for some time, and clearly these technology companies are betting their future on it. But it all comes down to how us as providers, infrastructure providers, can support that and get the timing right. From an investment perspective, clearly, a lot of these things have been promised for some years. So our investment horizons, our timelines, our business cases need to be matched with the reality of what can be delivered and when. And yeah, I mean, the subject of this panel is about digitalization. None of this will happen with the legacy systems and processes and non-alignment. I think it unfortunately happens with the telecom space, the very way that's been developed through regulatory regimes across the world in different countries, and the fact that it hasn't aligned as well as I think it could have done means that we're all challenged, and whatever we do, we're dependent on our competitors and our partners in doing similar sorts of initiatives. So yeah, great opportunities for us, challenges in terms of being able to build the infrastructure, the physicality of that, but digitalization is critical for us as we go forward.
Okay, thank you, Brendan. Federico, your glass bowl.
It looks good. If a sloppy answer would be, when everything goes down the drain, wholesale will be left, because we're going to be a dump pipe, and I'm going to have more work than before. I don't hope this is going to happen. More realistically, I think we have a good chance with 5G and exposing those network APIs. If we get the collaboration part, the API federation part right, there is a good monetization option. If we can collaborate in a way to offer end-to-end service level agreements to IoT customers and other customers where the application require that, that's a very good growth path as well. We have not talked about the metaverse. Why didn't we talk about the metaverse actually?
Because I mentioned already all the acronyms and all the buzzwords, and so
because for the metaverse, should it happen, it will only happen again if the wholesale providers on an international level will provide the connectivity, the bandwidth, the latency, and all that required. So, and again, this is another growth path. And with that, thank you very much for being here.
Greg?
Hard to beat that metaverse and flying taxis.
I'll try.
But yeah, eventually AI, 5G, IoT, those are still young technologies. And what we see at the very beginning of that road, that connectivity that Federico mentioned, this is between carriers, between partners, this is really crucial to actually move forward. And those technologies that we have at hand at the moment, that we are developing, those are bringing some really great possibilities for us that are yet unknown, and only the ideas of those flying taxis and metaverse, this is just a beginning in my opinion, and probably in 10-15 years we'll be amazed with what the life will bring us. But it all starts with carriers.
You see, it's inevitable to murder us. It's not possible.
It all ends with carriers.
Famous last words. Alan, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think, if I'm going to look at the future, I'm going to try and stick to numbers because I'm scared of making predictions. So, there's two things I'm worried about in the future in keeping this pace that we're all on here. And they kind of have to do with the same thing. So if we look at, just demographic math of the developing world, the boomers all retired on average last year. And that was 75% of global private equity. So this is all going to cash and T-bills, and all that free money that we've been playing with for the last 15 years is going away. So a capital crunch is here, right? So these are all very capital intensive businesses, and that has me worried. Based on that same math, there's a labor shortage. So, as like in America with the boomers leaving, they're the largest generation in American history, being replaced by one of the smallest generations in American history. So if we just look at the math of that.
Same in Europe.
Oh yeah, it's even worse in Europe because the boomers in America at least had kids, the millennials. The rest of the developing world didn't do that. so that labor collapse is even worse.
Got something. What was it?
So that, you know, the labor shortage is huge. I mean, for me, looking at doing construction projects, big, huge, long haul construction projects that are, you know, $50 million and go, you know, hundreds of miles. I can lock up a contractor in a region if I'm, you know, in foresight, have RFPs out well ahead of time and sign these guys up to work for me for this period of time. But if a Verizon or an AT&T comes along and does a 5G build out in the same region, they might tie up the same contractor for a year or two, and there's no extra labor to fill that gap. So these are the two things, capital and labor, just based on the demographic math that I think are huge issues that are probably going to lead to the slowing of a lot of this technological pace. And then you throw in the industrial inputs that are going to maintain this whole system, and the deglobalization and changing of supply lines and sourcing.
Nice? Anything positive?
I mean, I want to be positive, but I'm just looking at the numbers, right? And I'm sure
Realistic.
Yeah, realistic. And in the developing world, I think we're still going to see plenty of pace and plenty of growth. I mean, it's to your point, wholesale will still always be there. It's going to be one of the last things left is if things are crumbling on some aspects. But I think a lot of the fantasy stuff, especially related to smaller stuff like I was talking about before with IoT and the lack of low-end semiconductors, we're going to have to make some choices. We're going to have to make choices on what we want.
All right. Did you get that message, audience? I think so. Thank you so much. So I would like to thank you, audience, for being and sticking with us here. I will not take you any longer because I know lunch is being served. So I know you want to get the out of here. But thank you so much. Really appreciate that you would stay with us for the last hour. I would like to thank Brendan. Brendan, hope to see you next time, but on the seat, please, if possible.
Yeah, and I haven't had lunch yet either, by the way, and it's 3 hours later here. So
thank you for being here. I want to thank Alan. I want to thank Federico, and of course Greg for sharing their knowledge and sharing this all for you here at the GCCM in London on the IoT Summit. More to come after lunch, but first is things first. Lunch.